In the vast expanse of the galaxy, power is wielded by the few, and fear keeps the rest in line. The Galactic Council, a coalition of the most ancient and advanced civilizations, reigns supreme. Their fleets are unmatched, their knowledge spans millennia, and their rule is absolute. For eons they have expanded their reach, enforcing tribute from the weaker species and annihilating any who resist. Planets have burned, civilizations have been erased, and their dominion remains unchallenged. Humanity, fragile and unremarkable in their eyes, had escaped notice, until now. The Council scouts, ever vigilant for new worlds to exploit, stumbled upon Earth, a blue gem orbiting an insignificant star. But it wasn't Earth's beauty or humanity's culture that caught their attention. It was humanity's audacity. Despite their late entry into the galactic stage, humans dared venture beyond their home world, colonizing nearby planets and experimenting with rudimentary warp technology. To the Council, this was an act of insolence, a creature crawling where it had no right to be. A transmission arrived without warning. It bypassed Earth's primitive defenses and flooded every channel, from satellites to handheld devices. The message was not a negotiation, it was a proclamation. An alien voice, cold and disdainful, delivered the Council's ultimatum. Humanity was to surrender. Their resources would be confiscated, their governments dissolved, and their technology absorbed into the Council's vast archives. In return, they would be permitted to exist, barely, as a servile species under the Council's watchful eye. The alternative? Total annihilation. The transmission included visual projections of the Council's might, massive fleets of shimmering warships blotting out the stars, energy weapons capable of reducing planets to dust, and cities consumed by alien fire. The voice mocked humanity's efforts to reach the stars, calling them children playing with fire. The deadline for submission was set, 7 Earth days. The countdown had begun. Panic erupted across the planet. News channels looped images of the alien fleet, experts debated humanity's chances, and fear gripped the public. Some factions advocated for surrender, claiming survival was better than extinction. Religious leaders called it the end of days, while conspiracy theorists flooded social media with wild theories. Protests broke out in major cities, with people demanding answers from their leaders. For the first time in history, humanity truly felt small. But amidst the chaos, something extraordinary happened. The leaders of Earth, once divided by politics and ideology, came together. They formed the United Earth Defense Council, a coalition representing the entire planet. In an emergency meeting, they analyzed the ultimatum. The facts were grim. Humanity's weapons were decades, if not centuries, behind the Council's technology. Their fleet was laughably small, and their defenses were woefully inadequate. Yet, surrender was not an option. The decisive moment came when the leader of Earth, a figure who had risen to prominence in humanity's darkest hour, addressed the planet. The speech was broadcast live, reaching every corner of the world. Their voice was steady, their words resolute. Today, we face a choice, to kneel or to stand. They see us as weak, as insignificant. They do not know us. They do not know what we are capable of when pushed to the brink. We have faced extinction before, and we have survived. We have fought wars, endured famines, and rebuilt from ashes. And now, we will fight again. Not because we believe we can win, but because we refuse to surrender our humanity. We refuse to bow. Let the galaxy see what humans are made of. This speech ignited something deep within humanity. Across the globe, people set aside their differences. Engineers began designing weapons, scientists worked around the clock, and civilians volunteered in droves. Fear gave way to determination. If the Council wanted Earth, they would have to fight for it. The countdown continued, but humanity was no longer cowering in fear. They were preparing for war. The leaders of Earth gathered in hidden bunkers deep beneath the surface, shielded from the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council's scouts. Generals, scientists, industrialists, and heads of state convened around holographic displays, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of war plans. The mood was grim, but their resolve was unshaken. They faced the undeniable truth: Earth's technology was decades, if not centuries, behind the Council's. Their ships were little more than tin cans compared to the behemoths lurking in orbit. Their weapons, relics of a bygone era, were laughable against energy shields that could withstand the power of stars. But humanity had one advantage the Council didn't anticipate: creativity. While alien civilizations had become complacent in their technological supremacy, humanity thrived on improvisation. A plan began to form, not to match the Council ship for ship, but to exploit their weaknesses through unconventional means. The scientists spoke first, proposing radical ideas, weaponizing dormant technologies, merging crude human engineering with scavenged alien artifacts, and building weapons with strategies that would defy logic. The industrialists pledged resources, mobilizing every factory on Earth to operate around the clock. Assembly lines meant for civilian goods were retooled to produce war machines. Shipyards once used for commercial space ventures were commandeered, churning out spacecraft armed with hastily retrofitted weapons. Steel, titanium, and every ounce of valuable metal humanity could muster were redirected to this effort. Sacrifices were inevitable. Entire industries collapsed as their resources were funneled toward survival, but no one complained. Among the most daring projects was the reverse engineering of alien artifacts. Decades earlier, an expedition on Mars had uncovered fragments of an ancient alien probe. Until now, humanity had barely scratched the surface of its potential. But with the clock ticking, scientists worked tirelessly to integrate its advanced components into human designs. The result was messy, an unholy fusion of alien precision and human grit, but it worked. Around the world, unity blossomed in the face of annihilation. Civilians volunteered in droves, offering their skills, labor, and even their lives. Engineers worked without sleep, their hands raw and their minds running on sheer determination. Families bid tearful goodbyes to loved ones who joined the hastily assembled military. Artists turned their craft into propaganda, painting murals of defiance and victory. For Earth became the rallying cry that echoed in every workshop, every command center, every home. As humanity prepared for war, stories of individual bravery and ingenuity began to emerge. A small factory in Southeast Asia repurposed decades-old industrial drones into kamikaze weapons. A retired engineer in Europe developed an algorithm to improve the targeting systems of Earth's missiles by 15%. A group of students hacked into a disused satellite network to create a global communications grid resistant to alien interference. On the front lines, soldiers and pilots underwent rigorous training. The new recruits were raw and inexperienced, but their determination was unmatched. A grizzled warship captain, tasked with leading Earth's fleet, stood before his crew and delivered a speech that would echo in history. "We are outnumbered, outgunned, outclassed. But we are not outwitted. We are human, and that means something. We adapt. We overcome. And we will show them that even in the darkest of nights, humanity burns bright." The efforts bore fruit. On the eve of the Council's arrival, a prototype warship rolled out of the docks. It was a strange sight, sleek alien alloys fused with the rugged, industrial bulk of human design. Its hull shimmered with an energy field reverse-engineered from the Martian artifact, and its weapon systems bristled with a mix of railguns, missiles, and experimental plasma cannons. It was far from perfect, but it was a symbol of hope. The ship was christened Titan's Wrath, and its maiden voyage would be a trial by fire. Its crew, a mix of Earth's best pilots, engineers, and soldiers, boarded with solemn determination. They understood the stakes. This was more than a warship, it was a statement to the galaxy. Humanity was not a race to be conquered or dismissed. They were fighters, builders, survivors. As the Titan's Wrath took its place among the hastily assembled fleet, a message was broadcast across the globe. It was not a message of fear or despair, but of defiance. The Council's countdown continued, but humanity stood ready. Against all odds, they had prepared for war. Above Earth, the night sky transformed into a canvas of terror. The Galactic Council's fleet emerged from warp space in perfect formation, their colossal ships stretching across the horizon like a metal curtain blotting out the stars. Their vessels gleamed with an otherworldly luminescence, angular and ominous, each one a testament to millennia of technological superiority. Energy fields shimmered around them, an impenetrable barrier that seemed to mock the crude efforts of humanity. It was a display meant to intimidate, to crush any notion of resistance before the first shot could be fired. In stark contrast, Earth's fleet hung in orbit like a patchwork quilt of desperation. Ships of varying sizes and shapes floated in uneven lines, many of them retrofitted cargo vessels or repurposed mining rigs. Among them, the Titan's Wrath stood out, not for its elegance, but for its sheer audacity. Its hybrid design was bulky and uneven, but it carried an unmistakable air of defiance. This was not a fleet built for glory, it was a fleet built to survive. A final transmission from the Council cut through the void, cold and clinical. The alien voice, dripping with disdain, offered humanity one last chance to surrender. It was less a demand and more an expectation, as though the Council could not fathom any other response. They had given humanity the opportunity to bow, and surely, that was more than this primitive species deserved. The answer came not in words but in fire. Without warning, the Titan's Wrath unleashed its main cannon, a hybrid railgun plasma weapon that tore through the darkness. The projectile struck one of the Council's scout ships, shattering its energy shield in a burst of light before ripping the vessel apart in a cascade of explosions. Silence followed, a stunned pause as both fleets processed the audacity of what had just happened. Then chaos erupted. The Council responded with brutal efficiency, their warships surging forward like predators closing in for the kill. Their energy weapons rained down on Earth's fleet, beams of light slicing through the void and vaporizing anything in their path. Several human ships were obliterated in the opening salvo, their remains scattering into the atmosphere like shooting stars. But humanity refused to crumble. The hastily assembled fleet broke formation, scattering in every direction. It was not panic, it was strategy. Decoy ships, outfitted with crude signal jammers, lured enemy fire away from the main force. Kamikaze drones swarmed the Council's ships, detonating against their shields in blinding flashes. Electromagnetic pulses disrupted targeting systems, forcing the Council's fleet to adjust. On board the Titan's Wrath, the tension was palpable. The bridge was a cacophony of shouted orders and alarm klaxons. Pilots called out enemy movements, gunners tracked targets with shaky precision, and engineers worked frantically to keep the ship operational. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and the faint smell of burning wires filled the air. Every second felt like an eternity, every decision a matter of life and death. A young pilot narrowly avoided disaster, his ship skimming past an alien beam that vaporized the space where he had been moments before. On another vessel, an engineer bypassed a safety protocol to restore power to a failing shield generator, knowing full well the risk of an explosion. This was humanity at its rawest, improvising, adapting, surviving. The Council pressed its advantage, their superior firepower chipping away at Earth's defenses. Yet for every human ship destroyed, another took its place, fighting with a ferocity the Council had not anticipated. Earth's fleet was not just resisting, it was learning. Tactics evolved mid-battle, weaknesses were exploited, and every loss was a lesson. In the heart of the chaos, the Titan's Wrath executed a maneuver that would become legendary. Surrounded by enemy ships, it feigned a retreat, luring its pursuers into a trap. A cluster of drones, hidden in the wreckage of a destroyed vessel, activated in unison, detonating in a concentrated blast that momentarily disabled the enemy's shields. The Titan's Wrath seized the opportunity, its weapons unleashing a relentless barrage that tore through the exposed vessels. 3 Council ships were crippled before the others could retreat. The victory was small but significant. For the first time, the Council's fleet faltered. These humans, so easily dismissed as insignificant, had proven they could fight, and more importantly, they could win. As the battle raged on, humanity's losses mounted. Ships were destroyed, lives were lost, and the fleet was pushed to its limits. Yet, amidst the devastation, one truth became clear: Earth would not fall easily. The Council had underestimated the resilience of their adversaries. This was not a species that would kneel. The first battle ended with no clear victor. The Council's fleet withdrew to regroup, their losses minimal but their pride wounded. Earth's fleet, battered and broken, limped back to orbit, clutching to the fragile hope that they had bought themselves time. Humanity had taken its first steps into a war it could not avoid, and in doing so, had sent a message to the galaxy. Against all odds, they had survived. For now. The aftermath of the first battle was a grim reality check. What remained of Earth's fleet drifted back into orbit, battered and barely functional. Smoke poured from hull breaches, and the flickering lights of emergency beacons cast an eerie glow over the debris fields that marked where so many lives had been lost. In hastily convened debriefings, commanders recounted the brutal efficiency of the Galactic Council's fleet. Every statistic, every casualty report, painted a grim picture. Humanity could not survive another confrontation like this. Despair hung heavy in the air. On board the Titan's Wrath, engineers worked feverishly to patch up the damage, their faces pale and hands trembling from exhaustion. Medical bays overflowed with wounded soldiers, their cries echoing through the corridors. The ship itself, once a symbol of hope, now felt like a tomb. Yet amidst the chaos, one voice refused to be drowned out, a scientist who had spent the battle analyzing the enemy's behavior and technology. It started as a whisper of possibility, a thread of data buried in the overwhelming tide of failure. The Council's energy shields, long believed to be impenetrable, showed signs of an exploitable flaw. The scientist explained, their voice trembling with excitement, that the shields emitted a faint but predictable resonance, a blind spot where they overlapped during energy fluctuations. It was a weakness, small and fleeting, but it was something. For the first time since the Council's ultimatum, there was a glimmer of hope. A plan began to take shape, bold and fraught with peril. The shield vulnerability wasn't just a tactical weakness, it was a doorway into the heart of the enemy's strength. The Council's fleet relied on a centralized command network housed aboard their flagship, a massive vessel that coordinated their forces with unmatched precision. Disabling that network would throw their fleet into chaos, leveling the playing field, if only for a short time. The Titan's Wrath would carry a strike team directly into the belly of the beast. The plan was ambitious, bordering on reckless. The ship would use the shield blind spots to slip past the Council's defenses, while a small team of Marines infiltrated the flagship to disable the command network from within. The risks were incalculable, but so were the stakes. If we fail, the captain stated plainly during the mission briefing, Earth falls. The crew of the Titan's Wrath prepared for what could be their final mission. Soldiers sharpened their blades and checked their weapons, knowing they might not return. Engineers rigged the ship with every ounce of power it could muster, even stripping systems from other vessels to ensure its survival. Farewells were brief but heartfelt, as no one wanted to linger on the possibility of death. The mission began under the cover of darkness, with the Titan's Wrath navigating the debris fields left behind from the first battle. Enemy patrols crisscrossed the area, their searchlights cutting through the void. Every maneuver was a test of precision, every second a nerve-wracking gamble. The tension on board was suffocating, the crew holding their breath as the ship edged closer to the flagship. When the Titan's Wrath breached the Council's perimeter, alarms erupted across the alien fleet. The strike team deployed quickly, boarding the flagship through one of the shield blind spots before it could close. Inside, the air was thick with a sterile, alien atmosphere, the corridors illuminated by an unnatural green light. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency, their boots echoing softly against the metallic floors. The first wave of resistance came fast and brutal. Council soldiers, towering and clad in biomechanical armor, surged to intercept the intruders. The humans fought with ferocity, their smaller size and lighter equipment forcing them to rely on speed and ingenuity. Grenades detonated in narrow hallways, turning alien soldiers into smoldering wreckage. A Marine used a modified plasma cutter to breach a sealed door, while another rigged a Council weapon to fire in unpredictable bursts, catching the enemy off guard. The fighting was relentless. For every corridor cleared, another seemed to materialize, each one more heavily defended than the last. The team pressed forward, knowing that hesitation meant failure. Losses mounted as the Marines were forced into desperate close-quarters combat. A soldier used the last of their strength to tackle an alien into an energy conduit, sacrificing themselves to clear the path. Another covered the rear, holding off a swarm of enemies long enough for their comrades to advance, knowing they would not survive. Finally, the strike team reached their objective, a massive chamber pulsing with light, the nerve center of the command network. Alien operators scrambled to defend it, but the humans unleashed everything they had left. Explosions rocked the room as the team planted charges on the network's main systems. The scientists who had discovered the shield flaw worked feverishly to hack into the alien systems, their fingers flying across an improvised interface. The charges detonated, sending a shockwave through the flagship. Monitors went dark, and the alien fleet outside faltered as their coordination collapsed. Ships drifted out of formation, firing blindly in the confusion. It was the moment humanity had been waiting for. But victory came at a cost. The Titan's Wrath, heavily damaged from enemy fire, struggled to escape the flagship's proximity. Its engines sputtered, and fires raged in its lower decks. Key members of the crew, including the mission's lead strategist, remained behind on the flagship, holding off pursuing enemies to buy the others time. Their final words crackled over the comms. "Finish the fight." The Titan's Wrath limped back toward Earth, its hull scarred and its crew diminished, but its mission accomplished. The Council fleet, thrown into disarray, began a chaotic retreat. For the first time, humanity had struck a decisive blow against the invincible. The cost was staggering, but the message was clear: humanity would adapt, endure, and fight. Humanity had no time to savor the brief chaos they had sown. With the Council's command network shattered, the once unassailable alien fleet drifted in disarray. Their ships, once moving with clockwork precision, now floundered, their formations broken and their targeting systems erratic. It was the opportunity humanity had bled for, and Earth's leaders knew it. The counterattack was ordered immediately, a final gamble to finish what they had started. Every remaining warship was mobilized, patched up and barely holding together, but still ready to fight. Pilots climbed into cockpits with exhaustion etched on their faces, engineers fueled makeshift weapons systems, and soldiers readied themselves for one last push. Earth's fleet surged forward, a ragtag armada of courage and defiance. The Titan's Wrath, scorched and battered but still standing, led the charge. The battlefield was chaos incarnate. Human fighters darted between the hulking alien vessels, exploiting every blind spot and shield gap the strike team had exposed. Guerrilla tactics came into full effect. Decoy ships feigned retreat before luring alien vessels into traps, while kamikaze drones swarmed weakened targets, detonating in dazzling bursts. Retrofitted weapons, crude but effective, pounded against alien hulls with relentless fury. Humanity's greatest strength was on full display: their ingenuity, their ability to turn desperation into opportunity. Alien ships fell one by one, their defenses buckling under the onslaught. The Council fleet, accustomed to dominating weaker civilizations with ease, was unprepared for an enemy willing to fight with such ferocity. One human warship used a tractor beam, modified from a mining rig, to pull an enemy cruiser into the path of its own fleet's fire. Another ship, heavily damaged and on the verge of collapse, overloaded its reactors and rammed into a Council battleship, obliterating both in a fiery explosion. The tide of battle shifted. What had begun as a desperate struggle now became a rout. Human warships, once easy prey, moved with confidence, striking down alien vessels with precision. The Council's fleet, leaderless and overwhelmed, began to retreat. But there was no retreat for their flagship, still lingering at the edge of the battlefield, its bulk a grim reminder of the enemy's power. It was the symbol of the Council's dominance, and humanity's target. The Titan's Wrath surged toward the flagship, its crew knowing full well the risks. Shielded by the chaos of battle, it approached the massive vessel, weapons systems primed. The flagship unleashed a torrent of firepower, but Earth's ship was ready, using every ounce of its hybrid design to evade and absorb the attack. Railguns and plasma cannons blazed, each strike tearing into the flagship's hull. The Titan's Wrath fired its main weapon, a shot that pierced the core of the alien vessel. The explosion was monumental, a chain reaction that consumed the flagship in a blinding sphere of fire and debris. The Council fleet faltered at the sight of their command vessel's destruction. In a matter of moments, the remaining alien ships turned and fled, retreating into the void from which they had come. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had defeated the Galactic Council. On Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. Celebrations erupted in cities and towns, people pouring into the streets to cheer, to cry, to remember those who had given everything. Families embraced, their relief tempered by the grief of those who would never return. The cost had been staggering, ships destroyed, lives lost, resources drained, but Earth still stood, battered but unbroken. In a global broadcast, Earth's leader addressed the planet, their voice resonating with pride and determination. Today, humanity has shown the galaxy who we are. We are not pawns to be subjugated, nor primitives to be dismissed. We are builders, fighters, survivors. We have shown the Council that Earth will never bow. And now, we must decide what we will become. Will we thrive as equals in this galaxy, or rise as its conquerors? The choice is ours. Amid the celebrations, a shadow loomed on the horizon. Scientists monitoring deep space transmissions intercepted a faint but unmistakable signal, a distress call, sent from somewhere far beyond the Council's territory. Its origins were unclear, its purpose unknown, but its implications were chilling. The Council, for all their might, may not have been the galaxy's greatest threat. Humanity's victory was a beginning, not an end. In the shipyards of Earth, construction began anew. The Titan's Wrath, damaged beyond repair, was dismantled piece by piece, its components repurposed for something greater. The new ship, still unnamed, would stand as a symbol of Earth's transformation, a hybrid of human and alien ingenuity, forged in the fires of war. It would be faster, stronger, and ready for whatever lay ahead. Humanity had proven they could stand against the mightiest force in the galaxy. But their gaze was now fixed on the stars, and the unknown challenges waiting among them. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It would not make the same mistake again.